Welcome back. Today we're diving into Chapter 7 of Times, Born a Crime Times by Trevor Noah. At first, this chapter seems like a simple story about Trevor's dog, Foofy. But as the story unfolds, it becomes a powerful lesson about love, trust, and freedom. Through a heartbreaking experience, Trevor learns that caring deeply about someone doesn't mean you can control their choices. It's a funny, emotional, and surprisingly mature story that teaches one of the most important lessons in the entire book. Let's get started. To understand this chapter, we first need to understand an important belief that existed in some Black South African communities at the time. Many people believed that cats were connected to witchcraft and bad luck. This wasn't just a small superstition, it was a belief that many people took very seriously. Because of this, cats were often feared or treated badly. This belief plays an important role in the story and helps explain some of the events that follow. One event in the chapter shows just how strongly some people believed these ideas. During a large soccer match, a cat ran onto the field. A security guard claimed that the cat was connected to witchcraft and was there to bring bad luck to one of the teams. He then caught the cat and killed it in front of the crowd. Today, this action seems shocking and upsetting, but Trevor includes the story to show how seriously these beliefs were taken by some people at the time. This incident revealed a major cultural divide in South Africa. Many white South Africans were shocked and upset by what had happened. There were protests, and the security guard was eventually put on trial and found guilty of animal abuse. However, many Black South Africans viewed the situation very differently. Because of their beliefs about witchcraft, some saw the guard as someone who was protecting the players from bad luck rather than harming an innocent animal. Trevor uses this story to show how people from different backgrounds can see the same event in completely different ways. This issue became personal for Trevor and his family. Trevor's mother often challenged traditions and beliefs that she thought were unfair or unreasonable. As part of that attitude, she decided to keep two black cats as pets. She believed they would be safe in their neighborhood. Sadly, things did not turn out that way. One day, the family returned home to discover that both cats had been killed and left hanging on their front gate. It was a shocking and heartbreaking experience that showed just how strongly some people held these beliefs. Any doubt about why this happened disappeared when the family saw a message painted on their wall. The word hex, which means witch in Afrikaans, had been written there. The message made it clear that whoever killed the cats believed the family was connected to witchcraft. For Trevor and his mother, it was a frightening reminder of how powerful these beliefs could be and how they could lead people to act in harmful ways. After the loss of the cats, the family's relationship with pets changed. Instead of cats, they began keeping dogs, which were much more common in their community, but dogs were viewed very differently. Rather than being treated like family members, they were usually kept for a practical purpose. Most dogs stayed outside in the yard and acted as guards, helping protect the home. As Trevor explains, many people saw dogs as a poor man's alarm system, valuable mainly because they could warn families of danger. It was into this environment that two new puppies arrived. They were an unusual mix of breeds, part Maltese Poodle and part Bull Terrier. Trevor immediately fell in love with them. He was excited to have pets again, and he quickly formed a special bond with the puppies. Together, he and his mother named them Foofy and Panther, not knowing how important one of those dogs would become in Trevor's life. Although Foofy and Panther were sisters, they had very different personalities. Panther, who belonged mostly to Trevor's mom, was not especially pretty, but she was smart and quick to learn. Foofy, on the other hand, was Trevor's favorite. She was beautiful, with the strong features of a bull terrier, but the family thought she wasn't very intelligent. She rarely came when people called her name and often seemed to ignore commands completely. Because of this, everyone assumed she simply wasn't very smart. The family accepted this as a fact. Panther was the smart dog, and Foofy was the beautiful but not so smart one. But Trevor would soon learn that they had completely misunderstood her. The truth came out years later during a visit to the vet. The doctor casually mentioned that Foofy was deaf. The family was shocked. All those years, they had assumed she was unintelligent, when in reality she simply couldn't hear them. They realized that Panther had often responded to commands for both dogs, helping Foofy navigate the world. Learning that Foofy was deaf also helped explain one of her strangest habits. The family kept the dogs in a backyard surrounded by a 5-foot wall, yet almost every day when they came home, Foofy would be sitting outside the gate waiting for them. No matter how carefully they checked the yard, they could never figure out how she was escaping. The mystery was finally solved one day when Trevor happened to be home from school. Thinking no one was watching, Foofy climbed and jumped right over the 5-foot wall. Trevor was amazed. Curious to see where she was going, he grabbed his bike and followed her. Foofy traveled through several streets until she reached a completely different house, where she calmly jumped into the yard as if she belonged there. Trevor walked up to the house and rang the doorbell. When another boy answered, Foofy ran over to the gate. But instead of calling her Foofy, the boy called her Spotty. Trevor was completely confused. To him, this was Foofy, his dog. Why was someone else calling her by a different name? Suddenly, he realized there was something much bigger going on than he had ever imagined. But the other boy was just as confident. He insisted that the dog was his and that her name was Spotty. The two boys began arguing, each claiming that the dog belonged to them. Meanwhile, Foofy stood nearby, completely ignoring both of them. Of course, as Trevor would later learn, she wasn't choosing sides. She was deaf and couldn't hear either of them calling her name. For Trevor, this was the most heartbreaking moment of all. He desperately wanted Foofy to come with him and prove that she was his dog. But Foofy just stood there, not reacting to his calls. Trevor didn't yet understand why. To him, it felt like she was choosing someone else over him. In that moment, he felt hurt, confused, and deeply betrayed. Trevor rushed home in tears and told his mom that someone had stolen Foofy. Patricia immediately took the situation seriously. Together, they went to confront the other family, who claimed that the dog belonged to them. Not convinced, they returned home and gathered evidence to prove Foofy was theirs. They collected photographs, veterinary records, and even brought Foofy's sister, Panther, to help show that the dogs were related. Even with all that evidence, the other family refused to admit that Foofy belonged to Trevor. After a long argument and threats to involve the police, Trevor's mom finally offered them 100 rand. The family accepted the money, and Foofy was returned. In the end, Patricia had to pay to get back a dog that was already theirs. On the way home, Trevor was still crying. His mom couldn't understand why he was so upset now that Foofy was back. When she asked him, Trevor gave an answer that revealed what was really bothering him. He wasn't crying because he thought he had lost his dog. He was crying because he had discovered that Foofy cared about another family too. For Trevor, the pain came from realizing that her love wasn't his alone. His mother's response was practical and direct. She told Trevor that Foofy's affection for another family did not take away her love for him. The dog was still home, still cared about him, and nothing had actually been lost. Patricia wanted him to understand that love is not something that gets divided or used up. It was a difficult lesson for Trevor, but it taught him an important new way of thinking about relationships. In the end, this became one of the most important lessons Trevor ever learned. Foofy had not betrayed him or chosen someone else over him. She was simply living her life and caring about more than one family. Trevor realized that love is not the same as ownership. Just because you love someone does not mean they belong to you. Real love means caring for someone without trying to control them, and that lesson stayed with him long after Fufi was gone. That's a remarkable lesson for a child to learn, and it became an idea that stayed with Trevor as he grew older. His experience with Fufi helped shape the way he thought about love, relationships, and freedom. And it leaves us with an interesting question to consider ourselves. What did your first heartbreak teach you, and how did it change the way you see the people you care about? Thank you for joining us on today's lesson. I hope to see you again in the next chapter to explore rest of Trevor Noah's story.
If you'd like more personalized feedback, writing support, and discussion sessions, they're available with me or with our selected tutors. All the details are here.